right, we're recording. This is a first for me. I've never recorded a tutorial or anything, but here we go. Let's give it a crack. So I get asked all the fucking time how to do the color on the Alpha Legion guys, and I've been trying to do a photo tutorial for ages, but it's pretty fucking complicated actually. There's a lot of different colors involved, and taking the photos at all the different stages, I just keep forgetting to photograph a step, and it's hard to sort of know how to, I don't know, show you how to do it because it's a bit involved. Yeah, so I thought I would just video it. So at this stage, I'm going to use this guy because he is an awesome model. Look at that thing, that is sick. But you should see it quite well and see how quick it is once you sort of get the hang of it. At this stage, he's been airbrushed, and this color is essentially, it's the MIG metallic, blue metallic warhead, but for whatever reason, the hobby shop here in Sydney has decided to stop stocking it, and they don't know when they're going to start restocking it, or if they're going to start restocking it. So this is actually the MIG bluish to titanium, which you can see here. MIG bluish titanium mixed with a bit of this game color ink. So I say a bit, it's just I've done it by eye. You just need that blue color. You're not really going to see a lot of it, but it's a really nice base. And then it's had a coat of this. That's the best varnish, I reckon, the best matte varnish. I've never had it go cloudy or anything. Yeah, so I've had a coat of that. You don't need a coat of that. So a lot of people think that just because you're going to use oils, you're going to have solvent. As long as you've got a good prime, it's completely primed, and you've got a good base coat, it's not going to eat away the paint. It's not going to be, you're not going to have a problem using oils or using enamels, that sort of thing. So after that, we're ready to go with the oils. The next stage is you want to have all your stuff ready. So you want some of this guy, which is just Art Spectrum. So this is quite cheap from the art store. I started using Winsor & Newton, but I found the Winsor & Newton took ages to dry. It was a bit more expensive. This stuff's really cheap. I use it in combination with the Art Spectrum Cobalt Green. They're the only two oils that you will need in this stage. The next stage is this, which is the MIG oil brusher, and this is just the buff color. So we'll use this at the top of the surface. You'll see when I get started. Yeah, all right. Let's give it a go, hey? So there's your little ceramic dish thing. All you want is a little bit of your cobalt blue in there, or cobalt green, sorry. It does need to be this color. I found you won't get the color that I've got on mine. You have to use this. It won't work with any other brand or any other color in this line. But this is really this stuff's cheap. Like this tube is, I think it was $6 Australian. I don't know what that is in other currencies, but it's fuck all. And that stuff's, a few bucks as well. And this will last forever. All right, so chuck a bit of this guy in there. Just sort of do it by eye. Now, you don't need a fancy brush. I have been using, for the bigger guys, this, which is a makeup brush. I think I got 6 of them of varying sizes for $10, something like that. So we're just going to mix it all up. You can see that there's probably too much, there's definitely too much liquid in there. Let's mix it in a bit more though and see how we go. So we're just mixing is exciting. You can see I've cut my finger there. It's great. Got a really sharp knife at home. Yeah, we're getting an alright consistency here now. So I'm not going to need to tip out any of this thinner solvent, whatever you want to call it, odorless solvent. Shouldn't do anyway. It's all, you know, nothing's permanent. If you mess it up, just chuck a bit of the solvent on a brush and get rid of it. All right, so let's have a look. Let's see how this looks. Get a little bit of that off. Try it on a section here that's not as obvious, and you can see it's quite thin. So as it dries, I found that the key is really just to get it as smooth as you can at this stage. There's no brush strokes in it. As it dries, it'll actually become less transparent, if that makes sense. It'll the pigment will really start to actually color the surface. Yeah, so it doesn't matter if it's a bit sort of watery, a bit runny, a bit sort of weak looking at this stage, because it will actually still do its job. So you can see there's no particularly great skill level involved here. It's just really get it on. The bits that sort of pull, don't worry too much about. They will they will thin out. They won't clog your detail, because this is a very thin coat, but it will, as it gets drier, as it sets, it will give it that really nice color, and it will show some of that blue through, which is why it's important to have that base layer of the blue there, so you get the color that, well, that's how, if you want the color that I've achieved, that's how you do it. But you know, experiment with it. I mean, shit, it's just a plastic model. If you fuck it up, just take the paint off, strip it, and Dettol, and you know, do it again. Although Dettol's probably not that easy to get at the moment. Some cunt ate a bat. For my non-Australian viewers, I apologise for the language. There we go. It's pretty exciting, hey? You can see it's getting in there. It's going to tint it all a bit. I'm not sure if tinting is the right word. I don't know. Anyone who's been to art school might, I've been to art school, but someone who paid attention at art school might have a better idea of what this should be called. So you can see even down the bottom here, we're starting to get some interesting color here. This stuff, as it dries too, it does need to be varnished. So I'll get this on, and I'll come back to this in probably, I don't know, 36, 48 hours, something like that. And I find that that's where the color is right for me. And then I'll varnish it again. And the point of the varnish is really to seal the oxygen away from the paint. As it ages, as oil paint ages, it changes color. So the exposure, well, that's what I found on this anyway, the exposure to the air, to oxygen, will over time change the color of it. So if I varnish this in 48 hours, it will look completely different to if I wait 2 weeks to varnish it. The longer you wait, the more yellow, or the warmer the tinge. Sorry, not yellow, but the warmer the tint will be to it. So I found that, yeah, about 48 hours, I'll chuck a coat of matte, again, just the matte varnish over it. And that will stop it. That will sort of lock the color in once I've got it where I want it. And then I'll go and do, you go and do all your metallics and the lenses and all the rest of it. And this will be completely fine for gaming with, for touching all the time. Yeah, my pieces that I'm doing this for, they're designed to be, they're not display pieces. If you wanted to do some display pieces like this, sure, you could. You probably wouldn't paint a dreadnought in 35 seconds like I'm doing. But this really is just giving like the base of the armor. And you'll see, you'll see, I'll post another video later of what it looks like during the next stage. So all I'm doing here is getting the biggest chunks out of the details, out of the little crevices there, sort of spreading it around. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to leave all the bits that I want different colors. And this, like I said, you don't want to see brush strokes. So that's really the only thing that you're focusing on at the moment. Getting some of this liquid out from here. Again, it will not dry. If you've got your consistency right in here, it will not dry thick. And if you want to make it a little bit thinner, again, pretty straightforward. Just tap a little bit of it in there. Mix. And you can spread it around a bit like that. So this will give it'll be pretty funky sort of colors. Again, just experiment with it. Just play around, it's not the end of the world if you cook it. You'll get an interesting texture on your armor. It's that weathered look. You're not gonna, unless you're really using it differently to how I do, you're not gonna get your golden demon ultra smooth sort of paint job with this. It will give you a weathered texture. It'll give you it looks like it's metal that's been painted, that's been in a war zone. And I think that's what looks the best. It's not for everyone, but there you go. So the next step, we'll give this a bit of a wipe down with some paper towel. Just wipe the bulk of it off. Now what we do is we get a little bit of this. Now this oil brusher, you can see here, you just get a little dob of it, and I'm just going to put this at the top of the model. Oh, I've got a little bit of something on there. I'm going to put this at the top surfaces of the model. It's like let's call it a zenithal highlight. Yeah, so let's get rid of that. So you can let that sit for a minute. And then we just use a little bit of white spirit on the brush. And all I'm doing here is literally touching it, and you can see it's sort of, it blends itself in, and it'll go into those recesses, and it looks like, to me anyway, I think it does, it looks like weathered paint. It looks like weathered, it looks like a weathered surface at the top there where the sun has damaged it, or a corrosive environment has broken down the paint. It hasn't affected the functionality of anything. It hasn't affected the functionality of the armor or caused rust or anything like that. because I've been informed by several people that Space Marine armour does not rust, and yeah, look, if you're pedantic about things, yeah, maybe it doesn't, but it's a visual language. It's not a fucking historically accurate representation of something that happens 30,000 years in the future. This is also a 5 metre tall walking tomb with twin cannons for arms. Righto. So it looks pretty ugly now, but when this dries, it will, it'll look like the rest of my army, which you've probably seen. And if you've asked the question, this is the first step, or the first couple of steps. You can see we're starting to get the colour now. It's starting to actually sort of blend in. So what we can do is, if we think that there might be a bit too much colour, we can just add a little bit of the white spirit, not white spirit, so the odorless solvent it's called. It's a good idea to use one of these, what do you call it, Citadel holder thingies, because you'll get oil paint all over you. It's not great having solvent all over you, especially if you've got dirty, great big cuts on your fingers. So the lighting here is pretty harsh. I'll turn the light off and see if it makes a difference. If you can get a better idea of what that's the natural light. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and I apologise for the swearing.